You're watching Forsaken Joe. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy the story. Let's begin. I knew something was off the second I walked through the front door. It was the smell. Not dinner, not candles. It was cologne, some spicy woodsy kind I didn't recognize. I don't wear cologne. Natalie hates scents that linger on clothes. At least, she used to. My name's Derek. I'm 38, live in Cincinnati, and I've been married to Natalie for 9 years. We met at a coffee shop when I was still paying off student loans and she was working in real estate. We built a life together. Or, at least, I thought we did. That night, she came out of the bathroom with wet hair and a loose robe, humming to herself like everything was fine. But I'd passed the door a minute earlier. I heard the tail end of a low chuckle, definitely not hers, and the water wasn't running. She froze for a fraction of a second when she saw me, then smiled. "You're home early," she said, adjusting her robe like she didn't feel my eyes on her. Traffic was light. She kissed my cheek and floated past me like it was any other Tuesday. But I couldn't stop thinking about that laugh, and the cologne, and the way she didn't look surprised, just caught. I didn't say anything, not that night. Not the next. Instead, I watched. I started paying attention to her habits, her phone, always face down now, the sudden trips to show a listing at odd hours, her charger disappearing from the bedroom. Turns out, she'd moved it to the guest room. Said it was easier. Didn't make sense, but I let her say it. By the end of the week, I had installed a tracker on her car. I hated myself for it, but I had to know. It didn't take long. Thursday night, she said she was having dinner with her friend Megan. The tracker, parked outside a low-key private residence club downtown, known for poker nights and shady clients. I drove past just to be sure, and there she was, stepping out with a man in a slick blue jacket and a laugh that didn't belong to me anymore. I waited a few days before digging. Through a friend in IT, I got a name. Vince Marino, local poker dealer, mid-40s. Flashy, unreliable reputation. Known for flirting and debt dodging. I started to map out her lies, one by one, like a blueprint of betrayal. I didn't confront her. That would be too easy, too loud. Instead, I made a choice. I wasn't going to rage or cry or beg. That's what she'd expect. I was going to plan. Not just a confrontation, a collapse. If Natalie wanted a game, I'd give her one. But I'd be the one holding all the cards. I found Camille by accident, really. A friend of mine from college, Tara, still worked in real estate. And when I casually asked if she knew anything about a guy named Vince Marino, she didn't even blink. "Yeah," she said, wrinkling her nose. "He's married to this woman, Camille. Used to show homes together before he got deep into the poker scene. That's how I found her. Not through Facebook, not through some grand search. Just a phone number and an old listing I pulled offline. I stared at it for a full minute before calling. She answered on the third ring. "Hello? Hi, my name's Derek. You don't know me, but I think your husband is sleeping with my wife." There was a pause. No gasp, no immediate disbelief. Just a beat of silence and a sigh that sounded like it had been waiting years to come out. "Vince?" "Yes." "Your wife's name?" "Natalie." Another pause. I heard her shift the phone to the other ear. "Yeah." I figured something was going on. Just didn't have a name. Come by. That night, we met in a coffee shop just outside of Norwood. Public, quiet, neutral. Camille looked tired but polished. Wavy dark hair pulled into a clean bun, no makeup, sharp eyes that didn't blink much. She wore her pain like armor, not a wound. She brought a folder. Inside, receipts. Hotel bookings under his name. A dinner charge at the same club Natalie had visited. 2 parking tickets from the downtown lot dated the same Thursdays. Natalie claimed she had networking dinners. I didn't have a folder. Just a printout from my tracking app and a screenshot of Natalie's phone log. Blurred names, yes, but the same recurring number. Camille barely looked at my papers. "I already knew," she said, her voice level. I just didn't want to admit it until someone else did too. We sat for a while. No tears, just facts. She'd been suspicious for months. Vince had gotten sloppy, started showering twice a day, switched cologne, stopped wearing his wedding band when he worked the tables. "They always leave crumbs," she said, sipping her coffee. "Men like him, they can't help it." "I don't want to blow up her life," I said finally. "I want to unravel it." Camille raised an eyebrow. "Tell me more." So I did. The club, the poker ties, her sudden interest in dressing up again. her laugh in the bathroom, and when I was done, Camille leaned back and nodded slowly. Good. You're not looking for revenge, you're looking for precision. She tapped the folder in front of her. You know what would destroy Vince? Public shame. He lives off ego. He plays big because people think he's big. Take that away? You take away everything. And Natalie? I asked. She values her image, I said. More than anything. She built her whole identity around looking like the perfect wife. We sat in silence for a moment before Camille broke it. So what's the play? A setup, I said. Something they won't see coming. She smiled then, not warmly, not cruelly. Just the smile of someone who'd been quiet for too long, and finally saw a storm forming in her favor. I'm in, she said. Let's burn their little world to the ground. We decided on the casino, not just because it fit the mood, loud, flashy, fake smiles and dim lights, but because it was the perfect trap. Vince couldn't resist a poker table. And Natalie? She never turned down anything with free champagne and a reason to wear heels. Camille knew a guy. Everyone like her knows someone who's tired of being polite. His name was Rudy, a dealer who used to work private tables until Vince shorted him on a payout 3 years ago. He still held the grudge like it was fresh. You want to bait him? Rudy said, smirking across a booth in a half-empty diner. I'll tie the hook myself. Camille and I laid it out simply. We'd fake a high-stakes, invitation-only poker tournament at a casino downtown. Not a real one, just something big enough to feel exclusive, but private enough to control. The kind that would stroke Vince's ego just right. We'd drop a whisper through Rudy to Vince that a wealthy couple was looking for fresh faces to join their inner circle. A night of cards, drinks, and potential clients. Natalie would be the +1. Shouldn't be hard, Camille said. Vince will drag her there like she's part of the act. She'll eat it up. The hard part wasn't luring them in. It was making sure the trap snapped shut at the right time. We picked a date. 3 weeks out, Saturday night. Long enough to feel legitimate, short enough to keep momentum. Camille worked on pulling casino strings. Nothing illegal, just favors. Rudy arranged for a private VIP room to be comped under a fictional high roller's name. I called in a buddy from college who did security tech installs. No questions asked, no paperwork. Just hidden cameras, small ones, tucked into wall fixtures, vents, even a fake smoke detector. We watched the room take shape over 2 weeks. Plush leather chairs, a private bar, velvet-lined poker table, gold-trimmed sconces. It looked expensive enough to be real, but quiet enough to fly under the radar. I told Natalie I'd be out of town that weekend. Some made-up conference in Columbus. She barely asked for details. Just smiled, kissed my cheek, and said, "Don't work too hard." Meanwhile, Camille made sure Vince got the invite. An embossed card slipped into his gym locker at the boxing club he liked to pretend he trained at. The name on the card, Vincent Moreau. Not his name, but close enough to trigger curiosity. That same night, Natalie Googled how to dress for private casino events. I watched her through the bathroom mirror as she adjusted her makeup, already daydreaming about the spotlight. Camille and I met every other night in a quiet corner of a library downtown. No texts, no emails, just notebooks and whispered plans between shelves no one visited. At some point, I stopped seeing her as Vince's wife. She became something else. Not a friend, not a partner, just someone who understood exactly how betrayal rearranges your DNA. As we walked out after one meeting, Camille paused by the door. "What happens after?" she asked. "After what?" "After we break them." I didn't have an answer, still don't. All I knew was that the trap was set. The room was wired, the bait was in place. And Natalie and Vince were walking straight into it with champagne flutes and borrowed arrogance, blind to everything but their own reflections. They arrived right on time. Natalie wore black, tight, sleek, expensive. The kind of dress she used to mock when we walked past store windows in Hyde Park. She linked arms with Vince like they were royalty, like this was their kingdom, and everyone in the room owed them applause. Camille and I weren't there, of course. We watched from a cozy booth in a bar 2 miles away, a tablet glowing between us. The cameras in the casino's VIP room fed directly into our screen. 4 angles, all sharp. Natalie and Vince had no idea they were being recorded. They thought they were performing. Rudy met them at the door. Handshakes, compliments, a little inside joke about Vince Marino finally getting invited to the grown-up table. Vince laughed like a man who thought he'd won. Natalie laughed like she was part of something important. They didn't notice the bartender scanning their faces. They didn't notice how no one else in the room touched the cards. Everyone else, 3 planted dealers, 2 actors Camille paid out of pocket, just smiled and nodded and watched the clock. At 9:17 p.m., Natalie excused herself to the bathroom. That was when it happened. The plan was never violence. Camille and I had agreed on that from the start. No broken bones, no police reports, just a taste of what betrayal feels like when it bleeds into the public. But then, something changed. The bathroom door swung open on camera, and a figure stepped inside. Black hoodie, gloves. Natalie looked up in surprise, then panic. She tried to push past him. He shoved her hard, and she slipped, crashing into the sink. I saw her arm bend the wrong way on impact. She screamed high and short, and it cut through both the tablet and my spine. We couldn't hear words, just sound, crashing, shuffling, a low growl. Then the camera tilted slightly. A hand, his, reached up and scrawled something across the mirror in thick red lipstick. Belongs to a cheat. When he left, he didn't run. He walked out of frame like a man who had done what he came to do. 30 seconds later, one of our plants discovered her. Someone called security. Another called 911. In the main room, Vince was still smiling, cards in his hand, making some joke about cleaning house. He didn't know yet. The illusion hadn't shattered for him. But then a staffer came over and whispered something in his ear, and we saw it. The twitch in his jaw, the way he pushed up too fast and knocked his drink over. He rushed toward the hall, shouting Natalie's name. We cut the feed there. Camille set the tablet down like it was a finished book. Her wine glass was still half full. Mine was untouched. "She'll live," she said. "She'll remember," I replied. We watched the breaking news hit the ticker about 20 minutes later. Assault at private casino event. Natalie's name wasn't mentioned, neither was Vince's, but the video would leak eventually. Things like this always do. Camille pulled out a small envelope and slid it toward me. Inside, a USB drive. "Copy of everything," she said, "in case they ever try to spin the story." We clinked glasses, not in celebration, but in closure. Across the city, Natalie was being wheeled into a hospital room with a shattered humerus and a sob caught in her throat. Vince was giving a statement to police, still reeking of bourbon and self-pity. And me? I was sipping wine beside a woman whose world had cracked in the same place as mine. No fingerprints, no footage of us. Just 2 architects watching the first stone of a ruined temple fall exactly where we placed it. The hospital smelled like bleach and wasted time. That sterile kind of quiet that doesn't belong to grief, just embarrassment. I walked through the automatic doors with a small paper bag in my hand, one I had no intention of opening. Natalie was in room 418. Broken arm, concussion, bruised ribs. Nothing life-threatening, but bad enough to slow her down. She'd never looked smaller than she did in that bed, hair matted, face blotchy with smeared makeup, one arm resting in a cast over her chest. A nurse was adjusting something on the IV when I entered. She looked up at me like she expected drama. "I'm her husband," I said calmly. The nurse nodded and left without a word. Natalie's eyes opened as I stepped closer. She blinked twice, like she couldn't believe it was really me. "Derek?" Her voice cracked. "Oh my God!" She reached out with her good hand. I didn't take it. "What happened?" she asked, her eyes already wet. "It all happened so fast. I don't know who he was." "Save it," I said. She paused, lips parted. The tears started, but they felt like habit, not truth. "I didn't know who he was, I swear. You don't know a lot of things lately, do you?" I sat in the chair beside the bed, calm, cold. "Derek, I was scared. I thought I was going to die in there." She was full-on crying now, voice high and thin. "I didn't do anything wrong. You were cheating on me." Her mouth froze. The words hung between us like smoke. "With Vince Marino. Multiple times. Multiple places. Don't even try to deny it." She didn't. She just looked away, biting her lip like a child caught in a lie. It wasn't serious. I was confused. He was just easy," I finished. "Cheap. Exciting. I know." She looked back at me, something flickering behind her eyes. "You've been following me?" "I didn't have to," I said, reaching into the paper bag. I pulled out the USB and placed it on the bedside tray. Everything's on there: locations, timestamps, security footage. You recorded us? Her voice dropped to a whisper. I planned for this. Before she could respond, the door creaked open. Camille stepped in. Natalie's face went ghost white. You, she breathed. Camille didn't speak. She just walked over to the foot of the bed and stood, arms folded, gaze sharp. I don't want her here, Natalie muttered. I stood. You don't get to want things anymore. Natalie started sobbing again, covering her face. I made a mistake. No, I said. You made a series of choices. One of them was thinking I was too weak to find out. Another was assuming I'd forgive you. She looked up at me, desperation blooming. Please, Derek. I've lost everything. Not yet. I leaned in, lowering my voice to a blade. I'm filing for divorce, effective immediately. And I'm forwarding that USB to every brand you've partnered with, every PR firm you've worked with, and your precious yoga sponsor. You lied to them like you lied to me. I just have the receipts. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Camille finally spoke. Just one sentence. Your reputation's gone, Natalie. And this isn't even the worst part. Natalie whimpered. What do you want from me? I turned for the door. Nothing? And then I was gone. I left the house 2 days later. No note, no warning, no theatrical goodbye. Just packed a single duffel bag, locked the door behind me, and dropped the keys in the mailbox. Let her figure it out. The house felt hollow when I left it. Not just because Natalie was gone, she'd been discharged and went straight to her sister's, but because everything in it had been fake for months. The kitchen smelled like her perfume. The closet still held dresses she hadn't worn for me in over a year. It wasn't home anymore, just a set dressed for a life that never existed. I drove out of Cincinnati with no plan, no destination, just kept the radio low and the windows down. Somewhere around Columbus, I turned off my phone and dropped it in a rest stop trash can. I didn't need to hear from anyone, especially not her. Natalie's spiral began immediately. A friend texted me from a burner account a week later just to say, she's trending. A paparazzi shot had surfaced. Natalie, limping in flats, trying to cover her face outside a boutique. Headlines used words like scandal and infidelity. Her PR team must have run out the back door. One brand released a statement by noon. We hold our partners to the highest ethical standards. By the weekend, she'd been dropped by all 3 lifestyle sponsors. A fitness blog posted a think piece titled The Fall of Natalie Cross, How a Wellness Queen Lost Her Balance. Camille and I didn't talk much after the hospital. She'd delivered the final blow with elegance, a text that read, You were never the problem, just the mirror. She sent it to Natalie. Never told me what the reply was. I don't think she cared. For the first time in years, I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just quiet. I rented a cabin by a lake in northern Michigan, far enough from anything that cell towers gave up. Mornings were cold, and the coffee tasted better because it was mine. I chopped wood, walked trails, sat in a folding chair, and watched the water move without meaning. Every once in a while, I'd check email through a hotel's Wi-Fi, just enough to make sure no court documents were stalling. Everything was moving smoothly. Camille's friend, a lawyer, had connected me with a firm that handled quiet divorces. No media, no public filings with juicy language, just clean, efficient separation. Exactly what Natalie hated, silence. One night, I stood by the lake barefoot, watching the fog roll in and thought, this is freedom, not in the way people post about on Instagram, not new job, new haircut, start a podcast freedom. Number. This was the kind that feels like a locked door finally clicking open in your chest. I hadn't disappeared. I'd just stepped outside the frame she built for me, let her scream into the void. I wasn't coming back. It was late, past midnight, when I finally turned my phone back on. I was parked outside a gas station somewhere near Traverse City, sipping from a lukewarm thermos. The signal was weak, but the notifications came fast. 37 missed calls, 15 texts, 3 voicemails, all from Natalie. The last message hit different. Natalie, 11:48 p.m. I think someone's following me. This isn't about you anymore. Please, Derek, please call me. I stared at the screen. My first thought, paranoia. Guilt can make people see shadows where there aren't any. especially when your life's on fire and your name's been scraped off websites like graffiti. But something about the way she wrote it made me pause. I tapped the voicemail. Her voice came through in a shaky whisper. Derek, I know you hate me. I know. But someone's been watching the house. I thought it was paparazzi, but it's not. He was outside the pharmacy today, just standing there. No phone, just staring at me. Then he followed me to my car. I got away. But he was at the gas station too. I'm scared. I don't know who else to call. I didn't call her back. Instead, I messaged Camille. Me. Did Natalie contact you? It took 10 minutes, but she replied, Camille. Yeah, she's not the only one. I'm being followed too. I read it twice. Me. Are you sure? Camille. He was outside my office this morning. Same guy Vince owed money to. I recognized him. That's when my stomach sank. This wasn't about Natalie anymore, or me, or even Camille. This was Vince's mess leaking into all our lives. Camille sent another message. His name's Boyd. I remembered the name. Barely. Vince had muttered it once on a drunken call I'd secretly recorded. Said something like, if Boyd ever shows up again, I'm done for. At the time, I'd thought it was poker drama, maybe a bad loan. Now, I wasn't so sure. Me, what does he want? Camille, Vince. I leaned back in my seat, phone resting on my thigh, headlights from passing cars flickering across the windshield. This was supposed to be done. Clean, precise. A betrayal punished and filed away. But now it had teeth. Natalie called again. I let it go to voicemail. Camille called next. This time, I answered. He knows everything, she said without greeting. Names, where we live, even where I used to work before the divorce. You think Vince told him? Not directly. Boyd doesn't need details. He just needs names to put on a list, and we're on it. Her voice didn't shake, but I could hear the weariness behind the words. I thought we were done, I said. We were, Camille replied, but Vince had skeletons even I didn't know about. And now the bones are walking. Exactly. Silence stretched between us. Somewhere across the lake, a loon cried in the dark. We can't hide, she said quietly. He'll keep coming. I exhaled slowly. Then we find him first. Camille didn't respond right away, but when she did, her voice was steady. Okay, let's end this. For real this time. I hung up and stared out across the dark water. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was survival. Boyd Russell. That was the name Vince had buried, but Camille dug it back up like she was born to. She found a sealed court record linked to his old business. Illegal gambling and assault, mostly. Served 6 years. Out on parole 4 months ago. No job, no listed address. Just a short fuse and a long memory. He worked for Vince back in the day, Camille told me over the phone. Enforcer type. Collected debts. Made problems go away. Until he got burned. How? Vince paid him in fake chips. Sent him to Vegas with nothing but a lie. Boyd got picked up by Nevada gaming enforcement and did time for fraud. Vince never visited, never wrote. And now he's back. Yeah, she said. And he's cleaning house. We met in person 2 nights later, halfway between our hideouts, a dingy motel just off Chi 75. The walls smelled like mildew and bleach, and the lock on the door looked like it hadn't worked since the Obama administration. But the Wi-Fi was solid, and Camille brought a hard drive. Inside was everything. Vince's criminal history, encrypted texts Camille had pulled from an old burner phone he left behind, even a scanned ledger from a poker ring Vince used to run. Names, debt amounts, payouts. Most had been crossed out. Some were underlined in red. Boyd's name was circled 3 times. Right underneath it, in the same angry scrawl, $30,000. He's coming for it. And look, Camille said, scrolling through the scanned page. This, right here. She pointed at the bottom. A separate list, marked loose ends. Vince had written down 5 names. 4 of them were either dead or bankrupt. The 5th, Derek Shaw, my name. Underlined twice. I stared at it like it wasn't mine. I barely knew him, I said. I wasn't part of his game. You were sleeping with his mark, Camille said flatly. Doesn't matter how involved you were. Boyd doesn't think like us. He thinks in terms of weight. I nodded slowly. You on the list? Not by name, she said. But I found something else. She pulled out a photo, grainy, printed from an old iPhone. Vince and Boyd at a dive bar years ago. And in the corner, almost out of frame, a younger Camille, sitting at a booth, laughing. "He remembers me," she said quietly. "He has to." I looked out the motel window. Nothing but rain and a dead neon sign blinking half a letter at the gas station across the street. Camille closed the laptop. "We have two options," she said. "We run, or we stay and dig." I leaned back in the wobbly chair and folded my arms. Running makes us prey. Digging makes us dangerous. "You sure?" "No," I said. "But I'm tired of hiding. If he's coming after us because of Vince, then we use Vince." "How?" "We find his leverage. The files, the accounts, the proof of everything he's done. And we give it to Boyd." Camille raised an eyebrow. "You want to trade Vince's head for our safety?" "Exactly." She thought for a long moment, then nodded once. "There's a storage unit Vince used to rent. I still have the key." "Let's go," I said. Because I wasn't afraid anymore, I was done playing defense. We found Boyd at an abandoned steel yard west of Dayton. The place looked like something out of a forgotten war. Rusted beams, busted floodlights, patches of weeds pushing through cracked concrete. A single white Dodge Durango was parked near the loading dock. No plates, no windows rolled down. Just sitting there, like a warning. I'd gotten the meeting through a friend from my military days, Ryan, who owed me for a thing I never cashed in. I told him, "I need to talk to a man who doesn't like surprises." He gave me a time, a place, and told me not to wear anything flashy. So I showed up in jeans, a dark hoodie, and one thing in my hand, a black flash drive. Camille waited 2 blocks away in the car, phone in hand, the engine running. Boyd stepped out from behind a column, like he'd been watching us for an hour. He was taller than I expected. Gray beard, black hoodie, hands gloved despite the heat. "You Derek?" he asked. "I am." He nodded, glanced at my hands. "That it?" He pointed at the flash drive. "It's Vince's entire operation," I said. "Bank accounts, debt records, laundered payouts, emails, voice recordings." Boyd didn't smile, just took a slow step forward. "And why are you giving it to me?" "Because I want to live," I said. "And I want her to live." I nodded toward Camille's car, barely visible behind the chain-link fence. He didn't turn to look. "You think Vince is afraid of me?" "No," I said. "But he should be." Boyd let out a sound that might have been a chuckle, or maybe a growl. "He owes me 30 grand, he muttered. "You think this buys that?" "I think it buys more. It makes you the man who holds the leash. Vince has nothing now. He's burned every favor, ruined every bridge. This makes you the only hand left to feed from." Boyd took another step. We were face to face now. He smelled like motor oil and wood smoke. "You're calm," he said. "I've already lost everything. You can't scare me worse than that." He studied me for a long time, then reached for the flash drive. I didn't flinch. He held it up to the light. "If this is fake, I'll find you." "It's real," I said. "I have 3 more copies." He grinned, and it looked like his face cracked open. "You're smarter than you look." I turned to walk away, but his voice stopped me. "You know," he said, "most people beg." I glanced back. "Most people don't know what they're really worth." Boyd tucked the flash drive into his coat and stepped back into the shadows like a ghost. I walked slowly back to the car. Camille opened the door before I reached it. "Well?" she asked. "He took the deal." "And?" "No more blood," I said, sliding into the seat. "Just power." We drove away in silence. No music, no words. Just the wind against the windows and the hum of the tires on pavement. The war ended not with a scream, but with a nod. And I was still breathing. It's been 5 months. I live in a small house now. 1 bedroom, bare walls, quiet neighborhood near the edge of Lake Erie. The kind of place where no one asks questions and no one cares if you never come outside. It suits me. The lake's always cold, even in summer. Some mornings I walk the shoreline barefoot, coffee in hand, the wind biting through my hoodie. It doesn't hurt, not in a bad way. It just reminds me I'm still here. Natalie hasn't called since the day the divorce finalized. No messages, no attempts to fix anything. Maybe she learned her lesson, or maybe she found someone else's life to stand inside until it caves. Doesn't matter. She's a ghost in a house I don't visit anymore. Camille's gone too. After Boyd took the flash drive and disappeared, she left town for good. Last I heard, she was somewhere in Arizona, working at an art supply store, living in a place with desert wind and no memories. We don't talk. We don't need to. What we built together wasn't friendship or love. It was survival. And we survived. I don't check the news anymore. Don't track Vince. Don't care where Boyd ended up. Some fires just burn until there's nothing left. Sometimes, late at night, I sit on the back porch and try to remember the last time I was happy before all this. Not fake happy. Not dinner party smiles or anniversary photos. Real happiness. The kind that doesn't need to be proven. And the truth is, I don't remember. But that's okay. Because happiness isn't the goal anymore. Peace is. And peace is waking up without a pit in my stomach. Peace is not wondering where she is at 11:43 p.m. Peace is opening the door to a house where every object belongs to me. People say revenge is poison, that it never fixes anything. They're half right. It didn't fix me. It didn't bring closure or clarity or some magical sense of healing. But it balanced the scale. It showed them I wasn't blind, or soft, or stupid. It reminded me I still had power, even if I'd forgotten how to use it. I'm not healed, but I'm not hollow anymore. And maybe that's enough. One still day at a time.